So first of all, let's just start then by taking a look at this really quite shocking study that Oxfam have done. Just tell us a little bit about what this research has found.
Well, some fascinating figures. So 3.5 billion new clothes will be bought for the Christmas party season this year. 3.5 billion pounds will be spent on new clothes for the Christmas party season. And the thing that really shocked me was that 8 million of these items will only be worn once. And a further kind of thing to get your head round is that it doesn't occur to us when we've finished with our clothes to pass them on for recycling. So a quarter of those who say they will only wear the item once over the festive period will not pass them on for further use.
And that in itself is well, obviously it's very shocking in itself, but that sort of seems to me to sort of reference really our psychology and what we think about how we look. It's the image thing, isn't it? That we feel like we can only wear them once. Why do we feel like we can only wear an item once in the first place?
Oh, great question. Well, I think we are now thinking about being an individual brand, and certainly social media has encouraged people to present themselves digitally as sort of their best self or an amplified version of themselves. And so what we've seen is that people buy clothes or order clothes, photograph themselves in them and return them. So they're not even buying them. So clothes have become a vehicle to sort of elevate selfhood, if you like, rather than actually being a functional tool. We wear clothes for comfort and for warmth and to say something about ourselves. But, millennials have given them a new usage. Key, I think, is us making a bond with the value of that garment. I call my clothes friends. They're in my wardrobe, they're my armour, they're my comfort blankets. I wear them over and over again, and I style them differently. The idea that I would go to a lot of trouble to choose something that would look great, that I want to wear, and then I would only wear it once seems totally alien to me.
But as a millennial myself, sorry, this is Sarah speaking now.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello, it's lovely to speak to you. Thank you. But I don't know. We are sort of not. I'm not saying you're blaming us, but it is. It's become sort of a thing that millennials have changed the way that so many things work. But we are living in a world that's been created for us by other generations. And although, as you say, social media has had a huge impact, we are shown images in the media, we're shown other people's Instagram accounts, we are made to feel as though we have to keep up, and like how do we combat that sense that we have to be on trend, we have to have the latest thing, whether it's fast fashion or not?
Such a brilliant point, and it's about our beliefs, isn't it? So if we are buying into a culture in which we agree that we want to engage with a quick turnover of image, and we want to engage with a sort of commercial vehicle, those commercial vehicles that are selling very fast fashion, that, when we stop and think about it, we realise that it's possible that that price is there because people over the other side of the world who are making it have been paid so little. That's when we begin to connect with our power and becoming a discerning shopper. I'm a huge believer in the power of the purse, and that we can make choices with what we choose to do with our money and who we place it with, so that we are supporting brands that perhaps are giving us the messages or the services that we need, and we are turning away from brands that aren't considering environmental needs or the needs of the worker over the other side of the world. And of course it comes down to budget. There are many small companies, and there are large companies now, Peopletree being an excellent example of brands that put sustainability and working with in a fair trade way at the absolute top of their agenda. But there is a price increase for those considerations, and not everybody can afford those prices. So this is where companies like Oxfam come in. I've got 2 daughters who have always bought clothes from second-hand stores, as do I. And when, that's half the fun for me, is looking through the rails of a second-hand shop. And when you hear this fact, which is what really kind of inspired me, is that if you are spending £10 on a garment in Oxfam, 100% of that £10 goes on to help people in extreme poverty. And one example of what it can do is supply clean water for 10 people in a refugee camp.
Wow, that's a huge thing to bear in mind. That and we're talking about fast fashion. It's been in the news a lot recently because, of course, there's been the ongoing sort of inquiry, isn't there, into the whole sort of fast fashion industry. There was the event at the V&A last month. People saying some very interesting things. What do you think we're learning from this? And do you think the industry is learning? And can we actually make changes? Because, of course, in saying, we need to be aware of microfibers, or we need to pay extra money to people that are creating our clothes, or we need to stop sort of buying things that are super cheap. It sounds like it's sort of a fairly easy way of making changes, but actually the impact on that, on employees, on big businesses, it's a huge thing to try and turn around, isn't it?
It is. And I think sometimes that, we all make the mistake when we say fashion, that we think there's somebody at the top steering it. But in actual fact, it's an umbrella word for thousands of businesses, big and small, who operate around image. And so there's this idea that business will self-regulate and that everybody will do the right thing. But, we know from experience, fashion is just like any other business. It is concerned with profit and turnover. Those are really the only things that motivate a business. And if a business isn't seen to be profiting and its shareholders are unhappy with its performance, it can go down very quickly. So bringing in agendas around sustainability, around, my pet sort of focus around body image and promoting a healthy spectrum of body difference for people to see. These often come from activists, people who are passionate about these things and who do it not because they're driven by profit, but because they are driven by wanting better for consumers, wanting better for people over the other side of the world. And it's those people who then find their way into companies or create social media platforms which educate others. And slowly but surely we help motivate big companies towards a kind of better way of doing business. And that's where the power of the consumer comes in, because if we are en masse not happy or satisfied with the way a business is seemingly kind of fast turnover, no real policy or attention to toxic chemicals, and is certainly not showing us on their website that they have any corporate social responsibility towards their workers or towards moving things on, then why don't we just pick up our money and put it with a company who, matches out the price that we need to spend, but who shows that they're trying to push agendas forward? If we were doing that en masse, we could see things change quite quickly.
It's so sad that those of us who do buy consciously and shop consciously are already believers in that and already aware, and that's what drives our decisions. I myself today am wearing my Fairtrade Lucian Yak dungarees rather
beautifully
proudly. They're fab. They're a really great company, and they're very transparent, and you know exactly where your clothes are coming from and who they're benefiting, or the income is benefiting. But how do we, although we want to encourage these big companies to adopt more ethical practice and provide us with clothes which don't cause harm to other people, why should we be allowed to wear a pretty dress that has caused misery to someone else's life? Unfortunately, there are, and I won't mention any names here, but there are some big companies that I've noticed recently are doing sort of ethical lines, as they call them. But when you look into it, it turns out that perhaps they've used I think it's over about 80% of sustainable fabric, not necessarily, the processes aren't necessarily sustainable. And also organic cotton is a big one. How do we know that they're ethically sourcing their organic cotton? It can create a problem where something's being marketed as something it isn't really. How do you feel about that?
We don't know, and that, provenance is a huge issue because there are hundreds of different processes within the makeup of one garment, from the carbon footprint to their sourcing and their suppliers to the workers and the way that the workers are being treated. This is a huge amount for any consumer to have to be across, and so I tend to take a broader view, which is one of optimism, which is we are all trying to get ourselves into that space, and that we can help educate each other. There are technologies already being devoted to being able to monitor and rack up all of these aspects to be able to then create some kind of ranking that in the not too distant future we would have a phone app in which we could begin to scan the information, and that these companies would be duty bound to log this information so that we can understand who to spend our money with. We're limited in a way by our own imagination of what can be. But I think while there is that complexity, you can then look at the simplicity of making a choice to support a small up-and-coming brand as you have, and making a choice to buy less because your spend will cover the cost of one garment, not 5. Or you can take your budget, your limited budget, and you can take it to a charity store or a second-hand store and know that when you are buying that, you are preventing an item of clothing from going to landfill because you've given it another usage. Know that you will be passing it on again after that, taking it back to that same store to give them a chance to sell it again, and that 100% of your money, in the case of Oxfam, goes to help people in extreme poverty. So we can simplify things. And if we're choosing to spend our money in a different way, believe me, the market is constantly tracking how we spend and where we're spending, and they notice the shift of money and the shift of spend, and that is why, en masse, we do have so much power.
Brilliantly positive and empowering message to end on. Just let us know where we can go for more information.
You can look on any Oxfam website. The Oxfam online shop, which is oxfam.org.uk, will give you all the information you need.